Hello, chess fans! We're back with round 5 and 6 of my Nationals tournament. So in round 5, I was against a 2050, so I knew they were a strong player, and I knew I had to try to win this game to try and place because I'd already lost 2 games. So I started off with e4. My opponent went for d6, d4, knight f6, knight c3, and g6. We saw the perk defense, and I wasn't really expecting anything for this. I hadn't really looked at any of their games, but more so I was just expecting that every player would play the Sicilian, because usually people my age play the Sicilian. So here I went for bishop e3, which is looking for the English attack, and my opponent went a6. So now, if I were to go with the nonchalant queen d2, I think there's some problems after b5, f3, and yeah, I looked at this for black and I didn't really like it. I didn't really like it for white, so I decided to go instead for this move h3, and the idea is, okay, I'm still stopping this knight g4 move, but I'm also keeping a lot more flexible. And here my opponent played a really weird move. Here, maybe the best move is to go b5. Or sorry, not the best move. Here, a bad move would be to go b5, because here after e5, I think white is winning. So instead of that, my opponent went for this move e6. And here, just to know for hindsight, if your opponent ever delays this b5 move, now we can actually stop b5 with this move queen f3. And the idea is if they go b5, you have e5. And now, okay, you have this double attack. Or immediately here, maybe you have here bishop g7 and then e5 with this pin. So yeah, but the general idea is to go e5. So maybe this is better. But here I play this move f4, which maybe isn't the best move and maybe is a little bit of an overcommit. But basically, I thought that I have this nice Austrian attack center. My opponent went for b5, and here I went for e5. Here I went for e5. And yeah, here my opponent played a bad move. Here, maybe they should have played b4. Now, what I was calculating is here I would have queen f3. And for example, I was expecting rook a7, and here I didn't really see anything past this. I hadn't really looked at rook a7, but here d5 apparently is a very good move for white because I'm attacking the rook here, and after c5 the line goes on. It's a very dirty engine line. Now, whether all of this is relevant, not really. Instead, my opponent went for knight d5, which I think is a pretty bad move after takes because of the fact that I just have really nice development and their pieces are kind of bad. So here I went for knight f3, bishop g7, bishop d3, c5, d takes here, takes, and knight c6. And here, yeah, I kind of hallucinated something. I was really fixated on playing this move bishop g5, but here maybe simple enough is just a castle. And for example, if they take here, you can just take back, and if they take with the bishop, something like bishop h6, and they shouldn't be able to castle. And yeah, white should be probably winning here. You might be worried about something like this, but again, the focus of the game right now is not really on material, it's more on the activity of white's pieces. So yeah, this is probably what I should have gone for, but I was really fixated on this move bishop g5, which I think is the first probably inaccuracy by white of the game. So far, I think I played quite well. Now here, queen c7, and here I decided to castle. Now here I spent a really long time. I think I spent like 6 minutes in a 25-minute game. And the reason is because it's very hard to solve your problems. For example, here I was thinking about this move bishop f6, and after takes, I was worried about this move queen g3. And I just really didn't like this position for me. For example, here queen f4 attacking the pawn, and here the engine says like, oh, you're fine if you just sacrifice this pawn. And yeah, it's just really not clear. My king's on f1. I don't really have good development, so that might have been the best move by the engine. But instead I went for the second best move, which is castles, which is still not bad. And the idea after bishop takes is here you can go for one of two moves. Here bishop f6, bishop h6 was pretty good. Now I was worried about queen takes c5, king h1, and like f6. And yeah, again, the engine's kind of cold-blooded here because it says this position is easily plus 1.5 because black's not going to castle. But yeah, I didn't really see how I break through in the game. So instead, after bishop takes e4, I think I played the best move, probably best human, which is b4, which I think is just a very nice move, defending this pawn, keeping it solid, and now black's structure is really bad. You might say, oh, doesn't that hang this? No, this is pretty much untakeable. For example, after rook g8, something like rook e1, I think is already game over. For example, after bishop e6, queen f6, and yeah, there's no way to defend this. Yeah, I don't think either me or my opponent were seriously considering him taking. He castled, and here he is kind of threatening to take. Now, I do not have to defend, but it's kind of just like, what better thing would I do? For example, if I go queen d2, he could take, and yeah, okay, white has full compensation for the exchange, but yeah, it's like, what better thing do I have to do than to defend my rook? So I went rook b1 after maybe like 2-minute think. Here my opponent went bishop e6, which kind of really doesn't do anything. Here maybe f6 would have been better, and I think my opponent said that this would be good after the game. Here I was planning to go bishop e3, and okay, I thought I'm better. Their structure's pretty bad, and yeah, I don't know, my pieces are pretty active, but I didn't really see how to win from there. Here I went for this move a3, just improving. Sometimes it's going to be a useful move if he ever plays b5, then I can now just take on b5. Or sorry, if he plays a5, I can just take on b5. Here we went bishop d4 check, king h1, and queen g3. So now this is a bad idea, but it's kind of hard to recommend something to do for black here. For example, one of the best moves according to the engine is bishop d7, but this is very unhuman-like. So I think my opponent's approach is trying to get something here on the queen side. Here I went for bishop f4. Attacking the queen, and now the queen's kind of offside on h4 after this move, queen f3. And queen f3 just brings some defense here in case he was ever threatening to sack, and also activating the queen, maybe preparing rook e1 in the future. And here my opponent really went all out with this move, g5, which probably is a bad move. Now, it's really, really tough to admit that you were wrong and maybe go back like bishop g7, and even this, I think he would probably suffer a slow death, so I think g5 is a much more practical move. Here we have bishop d6, attacking the rook. He defended the rook, and here I went for this move bishop f5. And the idea is I just want to take, and then give this check, so probably has to do something about that, and my opponent doesn't. Now here maybe simplest is to go g4, and after takes. Yeah, black is pretty much losing here, but yeah, better than what happened in the game. My structure is really solid, and now I'm even up a pawn. Okay, but instead rook a7, which is actually just a really bad move, because now you undefended your rook here, and after rook be1, your bishop can no longer even take here, because you're pinned. So the position just went from bad to worse, and here the only move I saw was bishop g7. And yeah, here I kind of missed maybe an easier way to win. Maybe here I should have gone for this move, rook e3. Now we'll see why this is different in the game. After here, my opponent goes h5, and the idea is now my opponent can go here. Now rook e3 would have given me extra option to go queen e2, which would have still kept this pin. So after bishop g3, g4, here, if my rook was on e3, I would have queen e2. But unfortunately, I don't have that, so here I just went for the endgame. Takes. Now here I'm up a pawn, rook a7, I went bishop d3, bishop b2, attacking my pawn on b2, but again, his king is probably a little bit too weak here, so I gave a check, king f8, I went rook g5, threatening the pawn, takes, I went for c3, trapping the bishop. Now the bishop can only get out this way. Rook here I took on h5, here my opponent played king 8, and here my opponent told me after the game here I had a nice win. I was calculating this win, but for example, this is what I was calculating. Takes, bishop g6, here, rook h7, king d7, and I kind of stopped my calculations here because I didn't really see anything. Here, apparently, I have mate after something like this, here, and bishop e8, which is very, very, very hard to see after takes here and rook c7. I don't think that's easy to see, especially not with a lot of time on the clock, but here, I mean, my opponent pointed out an easier win after takes, rook h7 is quite easy with bishop g6 to follow, and then bishop f6 in here, and there's no way to avoid mate. The engine even says rook c7 is the best move. So yeah, that would have been cleaner, but instead I took here, and after rook c6 I played rook h5, threatening this check to win the game, and after bishop d7, bishop e4 is good enough for game, because even if I just win the exchange here, for example, I think I'm winning more. For example, with here rook e1, and there's no way to save this bishop. Bishop f4, rook d1 at some point, king c7, and yeah, this should be game over. So here my opponent resigns. So yeah, a pretty nice game by me. I think that here I took advantage of most of the things my opponent gave me, and I managed to play a pretty good game. The engine said I had around 90% accuracy. So in this next game I was black, and I was against a 1200. So again, usually I have like a game against like a 2000 plus player, and then against a game against one of the weaker provinces. So this game was against 1200, but this 1200 was doing pretty good in the tournament. I think he had the same amount of points as me. Granted, he didn't play all the strong players yet, but he definitely wasn't a weak player. So here I went for g6 like I've been doing the whole tournament. My opponent went for d4, d6, knight c3, knight f6. Yeah, and here I was like, okay, I might as well transpose back to the perk. Knight f3, bishop g7, bishop e2. Yeah, this is sort of the boring approach. And yeah, usually what I would do here is I would castle, and after castles, there's this line with c5, and yeah, after takes. I mean, black is supposed to be equal here, but yeah, I didn't really want to play this, and I assumed my opponent would go for it. Here, maybe more adventurous for white is to go for this move d5, and yeah, I actually have a lot of games in this position, and I think white's actually doing pretty well, but yeah, that's usually what I do. Instead, my opponent, I went for a c6 because I kind of just wanted to keep more pieces on the board. My opponent went for a4, which is, again, a very annoying move. I really did not like the way my opponent was playing this because he was kind of killing all the fun. So I went knight bd7 here, and yeah, here as I've airied out, I should have gone for one of those two moves. Instead, I kind of got like a little bit overzealous. I was like, why did you put your bishop on f4? Because usually the main line goes with bishop f3, e5, and yeah, black's worse, but like, it's a position. So he went bishop f4, and I was like, there got to be some way to punish that, and there is a way to punish that. e5 is going to come with tempo. I should go like queen a5, or I should go like queen c7. Either of these moves is very good. Here I was worried about this move e5, but again, now here I can play knight h5, and after takes, this is apparently pretty good for black after something like a5 or rook e8. And after d5, I could even look forward to getting a knight on f4. So this would have been good for me, but instead of that, after knight h5, my opponent went bishop e3, and I went e5. And the reason why this is slightly different is because I could have got this e5 move for free, and then I don't really have to commit this knight to g4. I could have gone knight g4, attacking the bishop. So here my opponent went for queen d2, just connecting the rooks. I went for queen c7. My opponent went rook fe1. Developing pieces. I'm developing pieces too. My opponent went for d5. And yeah, d5 was the first move that I didn't really think was that good in the game. Now, apparently it was. Here, probably I should go here, threatening this. And then after here, some mass exchanges. And we get to a position where, okay, maybe black is doing well. For example, if rook back to d1, the position is about equal. After something like bishop e6, I don't really see much for both sides here, but I just wanted to give a sample line. If white tries to get greedy and tries to keep their bishop, their rook's developed, here you have bishop f5, which I think should take the initiative right away, and okay, you're threatening some sort of discovery, maybe knight f6 even, if needed, and black should be about equal here. And that's what the engine said, but I went for c5. I'm trying to keep as many pieces on the board as possible. And yeah, here my opponent missed a pretty thematic idea. So they have this knight on c3, so there's no really c4, b4 ideas yet. So maybe here they should go for a5, sort of stop any play I have on the queen side, and then look to counterattack on the queen side as well. And yeah, it makes it really hard for me to break with f5, because at any point if I break with f5, my structure in the center becomes kind of weak. So here instead, my opponent went for this move knight b5, and the idea of knight b5 is, I'm not really sure. I assume that they were trying to go for c4, but here after queen b8, I moved my queen out of the attack. They went queen a5, threatening knight c7, but it's not even a threat actually. Sorry, threatening knight c7, it's not even a threat because I have here, so maybe they're actually threatening queen c7. So I thought, how do I stop queen c7? I just go b6, and then they went queen back to d2. So yeah, up to this point, my opponent had played really well, and then here they played these two moves that I thought were pretty questionable. Here I played a6, and my opponent went knight a3, and here I was drawn by the arrows. If I go bishop b7, I was worried my opponent can go knight c4, and okay, there's pressure here, and they're threatening sort of a5 in some ideas. So I wanted to play rook a7, rook c7, and then bishop b7 to activate my rook. Now this is really slow, so this is probably not a good move, but after knight h4, I bring my knight back. Now I just wanted to go here. And you might say, aren't you really looking forward to f5 in some positions? And yes, while that is true, sometimes you do need to give up your plans. And here I noticed that I could get knight here with tempo. I can go here, and he doesn't have time to play h3. So it may have been wiser for him to play h3 in this position. And yeah, my position remains quite difficult here. I would have continued with my plan bishop b7, or sorry, not bishop b7, rook c7, knight c4, bishop f8, and I would have to look forward to knight g7, f5. But yeah, it's not really an easy position to play. When here after knight c4, I get this knight g4 with tempo, and now, okay, I'm going to get some tempos on the bishop. Here maybe they should keep the bishop with something like this. But yeah, it's hard to say the bishop wants to go offside like this, so now my opponent plays h3, and I get rid of the bishop. So I know we have a closed position, and I do have the two bishops, but if the position is ever to open, I should be much better here. So here I play knight f6. Now, okay, again, no need to rush with f5. Again, f5 creates some weaknesses on e6. I don't need to play it just yet. So I went knight f6. I'm looking forward to bringing the knight to the f4 square. My opponent went queen d2, which is an okay move. Here probably they should have gone b4, but again, this is already a difficult move to see because, okay, I'm going to get a rook to b7. Do you really have counterplay after something like bishop d7, takes, rook b1, rook b7? Yeah, it's hard to say whether either side is better here. Probably black is slightly worse, but definitely there's still a lot of play in the position. But instead my opponent went queen d2. It's kind of telling of a lower rated player that when they don't really know what to do, it kind of just go back and forth. But you have to have some sort of idea to progress your position. And that's what I was sort of giving my opponent. Here I went queen c7, which doesn't really do much. But it's sort of eyes against this a5 move. And here actually I already had a move. I could have gone for this move b5, and it comes with a tactic, takes. If he takes on a7, I thought of takes. But remember, captures back is never forced, so here I would have takes, and you know, if he moves his rook back, I take here, and I have two pieces for the rook. So this was a tactic I missed. So instead of that, after b5, he probably has to go like knight a3, in which case I could take here, or I could go bishop d7 to preserve this. So yeah, that would have been better for me. But instead I went queen c7, he went for b3, and here I went for bishop f8, defending this. And here, probably what he should do is go king h2 and g3, just to prevent my knight from ever coming to f4. But instead, my opponent, after bishop f8, they didn't really know what to do. They can't really break with b4. They can't really do anything on the queen side. So what if they try to do something on the king side? But that's sort of what I've been preparing for, especially with this move bishop f8. It brings the bishop to this diagonal where it could be relevant. So here I went for h5. And yeah, after g5, I think my opponent is probably just losing. And the reason why is they've created too many weaknesses. So I think this game is a very good illustration of how higher rated players beat lower rated players. It's by just doing a bunch of nothing in a closed position, and they're going to create weaknesses. They're going to make bad moves. They're going to do nothing here. So I was progressing my plan. I was sort of activating my pieces and sort of getting ready for knight h5, knight f4. That was my eventual idea. And they were just pretty much doing nothing on the queen side, so I didn't have to worry. So now knight h7, attacking here and also attacking this. And here my opponent went bishop f1, so now they're going backwards. And yeah, here probably I should have gone for, okay, sorry, my next move is good. But here after king h2, I made a bad move. Here I probably should have gone for f6. And for example, after takes, the position is supposed to be very good for me because, yeah, I'm not really sure, honestly. Oh, sorry, I should have gone for queen d8. And after h4, now f6. And now I'm going to win this pawn. For example, takes, I'm winning this pawn by force. Yeah, I didn't actually see this. I was really enthralled by this move h4, and the idea is if he takes here, I win the game with this fork. And I'm also not allowing this h4 move. And here my opponent finally lashed out with b4. I went for queen d8. Remember, you don't really have to pay this any attention. If takes here, he does get a lot of play actually all of a sudden. Though even this might be good for me after rook here, but yeah, no need to allow this now. Maybe this pawn is weak, who knows. So I just went for queen d8. Takes, my opponent went queen e3. I don't really know what queen e3 does, to be honest. Yeah, but at this point it was already pretty hopeless. So I went for knight takes g5, knight takes h4, and yeah, here calculate the winning move. There's many moves that are winning here, but there's one move that I played that's just really nicely winning. So yeah, actually you can lose the game very quickly here. For example, if you play this move knight takes h3, which some of you might have been thinking about, after takes, and if you take here, I think there's some sort of tactic. Oh yeah, there's takes, and yeah, knight takes d6. So there's ways to lose this. So instead of that, you could have also said knight takes e4, but again, here actually white is getting a little bit of counterplay. After queen g2, white's not immediately losing, and we kind of want to force white to be immediately losing. So you might have seen these tactics on this hanging knight, but here the best move is king g7. Remember to activate all your pieces. The rook's coming to the h file, and this should just be game over. Here my opponent tried to bring the rook into defense. I went here, and after queen g3, you get 5 seconds to find the tactic here. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So if you found the tactic is rook takes h4, and after takes, I went knight f3, and I think my opponent resigned after rook takes h4. So yeah, I think this was a very good game. I think I showed a pretty good illustration of like how to play a closed position. You're supposed to have some sort of plan, some way to build your initiative, and it doesn't necessarily have to be with pawn breaks. So a lot of people will tell you you have to make pawn breaks in these closed positions. You have to identify which pawn break is yours, and that's the way you have to proceed the position. But it all depends on the position, really. Here, as you can see, I maneuvered my pieces around so that I could create some squares in my opponent's camp and then sort of outmaneuver them. And it was actually on my opponent to find the pawn breaks. But my opponent didn't want to commit to anything big, and eventually ended up just moving around pretty thoughtlessly and letting me win the game. So yeah, that's the end of today's video, guys. If you like this video, please remember to leave a like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys for round 6, 7, and 8. No, sorry. 7, 8, and 9 in the next video. I'll see you guys next time.